Hey everybody. Hello. Welcome to Malbec class. If you're out there, say hi. Give me a wave. If you haven't joined us for wine class in the virtual world yet, welcome. Hello. The way that we run these classes is similar to the in-person classes if you've joined us at Table Wine for class before. We are using the chat bar as kind of the main way of communicating. And I really do value hearing what you have to say. Just the hellos are great and the waves are great. But as it comes time to taste the wines and stuff, it really is the most fun and the most useful if you guys kind of, ask questions, throw out ideas, tell me what you're smelling or you're tasting as we go, so that it's not just me talking and telling you what I'm smelling and tasting. Oh, yay. You had to go grocery shopping this afternoon. That's not ever fun. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thanks. It's so great to see you. One big change tonight from any of the other virtual classes that I've done so far is that I don't have the ability to show you any slides. I can't share my screen tonight. I'm not entirely sure why. So it is, I am your visual aid and the bottles of wine are your visual aid. So we won't have quite the same things, which does mean that I might be saying more kind of wine word stuff at you in the hopes of giving you that kind of information that has been on the slide in the past. So again, my apologies about that. I woke up on Sunday morning and my computer just decided that it did not want to work anymore or turn on at all. So I'm flying by the seat of my pants this week. It's been interesting. So let's get in. Let's start talking about Malbec. This class came about as a direct request from somebody who joined us for an earlier wine class who said that she was interested in learning more about Malbec. I actually taught this class for the very first time in person not too long ago. I mean, all things considered, it was late last summer. I taught it for the very first time. And sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Can you tell? Give me one hot second. All right, there we go. I taught this class for the very first time last summer, and that also was a customer request. So I guess I'll pause now and say, if you have any requests for classes, let me know what you're interested in learning about. A week from Saturday, we have Greek class, but I have not planned any classes beyond that. So I'm all ears, guys. If there are things that you want to learn about and taste that would make sense in, kind of a class format, throw out your ideas. So this class came about from a couple of different customer requests, and I was, the reason that it kind of took me so long to teach it was that the only Malbecs that we had access to were kind of almost all of them were from the same region in Argentina, and there wasn't a significant enough difference between those wines that it made sense for me to teach it as a class. It was kind of like, okay, normally in in-person classes, I teach 6 wines. And so it was like, there aren't 6 different enough wines. So it took me kind of years of having it in the back of my mind that the interest was out there to build up kind of the repertoire of wines that I could choose from. So that's kind of what took me so long in the first place. But now I'm happy to be able to do it. And I think this trio of wines is just fantastic. And we're gonna end up teaching or talking tonight about geology a little bit more than you might expect. So heads up about that. So yay, I'm glad. I know that it's people's fave, right? Like I know that people love it. It's just more like how to make a class about it, I mean, it's cool to sit around and say like, I like this wine so much, but what is there to talk about? So tonight we're going to talk about it. So some general characteristics to talk about if you guys aren't so familiar with Malbec, if it's somewhat new to you. This is where I would normally show you a slide with these words on it, so bear with me. Here I am going to be the slide for you. the general flavors and aromas that come up with Malbec. There are a lot of different fruit flavors and aromas. They tend to lean towards kind of the black, blue, and purple fruits. What's that? Cherry. And that can be kind of cherry of various colors. Plum. That could be red plum. Like, it's not that red fruits are off the table completely. It could be black plum, those kinds of things. Blackberry, blueberry, fig, both fresh and dried, get thrown about with Malbec quite a bit. So that's a fruit that doesn't come up with very many other grapes. So if there's something about Malbec that you're like, ooh, I love Malbec and I'm not sure why, or there's something about Malbec that's unlike anything else I've ever had, maybe that's the flavor or aroma that you kind of dig on that you haven't quite figured out. That's like what it is that you like so much. Something that comes up with Malbec a lot, if you get kind of nerdy about it, is minerality. That can be wines that taste or smell like graphite, like crushed rocks. Oh, and when I say graphite, think of like pencil shavings, that kind of smell, or even taste that comes out in Malbec quite a bit. You can even get kind of like limestoney, which to all of us Scotties, we know what limestone smells like. Some of us even know what it tastes like. There's a big category of flavors and aromas that come from oak aging, wines that are aged in oak barrels. And so those come up with Malbec quite a bit. Chocolate, vanilla, coffee, that kind of wheelhouse of flavors, baking spices, those things come up with Malbec quite a bit. Spices, like I said, cinnamon is kind of the big one, but you can kind of throw out whatever you smell or taste. And then some herbs as well. I think that you see this more in French Malbec, which is where we'll end, than you do with Argentinian Malbec, but you get them in both places. So those are kind of the general flavors. I always like to say that I tell you that not to tell you what is allowed while we're tasting and what, I think you should be smelling. It's so that you kind of start to think about, like, I don't know anything. This smells like red wine. Okay, let's go a little bit beyond just it smells like red wine or it smells good. Let's go a little, 1 to 2 steps down that path. And so I give you all of those ideas of aromas and flavors to kind of jog something for you, maybe help you kind of spark something as you're smelling the wines. Other general characteristics about Malbec, the grape, that you should know, the wines tend to fall pretty squarely in the full-bodied category. I've not come across very many Malbecs in my time that would be anything lighter than like medium full-bodied. So that is also, I think, one of the reasons that it's so popular. People like these full-bodied reds. So it falls into that category very squarely. The acidity level on Malbec is not very strong. It's kind of in the medium-ish range, medium to low. It is dry, meaning not sweet. We'll talk about tannins in a second. It is, a dry grape. It does show a lot of fruit flavors. So it can taste sweet or fruity to people because it does have a lot of like fruit characteristics, but it's not sweet actually on the scale of things. Tannins, we've talked about before in classes, virtually and in person. If you are joining us for the first time and you don't know what tannins are, this would be the time to chat me up and tell me to go over tannins. But if you are all familiar with tannins, I can just say that Malbec falls into the like medium to medium high tannin category. Yes, yeah, a definition would be useful. Okay, for those of you who take classes with me all the time, bear with me. Tannins are a physical compound that exist in grape skins and seeds and stems. They physically dry your mouth out. It is it's an objective thing in terms of like it does dry your mouth out. If you've had walnuts and that kind of almost chalky feel that walnuts have, if you've made a cup of black tea and then completely forgotten about it and let it steep far too long, and that kind of almost astringent feeling or taste on the side of your mouth or on the back or even on your tongue, those are tannins. Often people refer to tannins or kind of use tannins and dry interchangeably because they do actually make your mouth feel dry. Us in the wine world, we talk about dry on a sweetness scale, so tannins are kind of their own separate thing. So that's what tannins are. I hesitated over the word objective for a hot second there because tannins are objective, but depending on what you drink regularly, your ability to perceive them can be skewed one way or the other. So if you drink nothing but really big, robust reds with lots of tannins, you can often think that all other wines are thin. I hear that from a lot of Cab Sauv drinkers who think Pinot Noir doesn't taste like anything. They think it's thin because it has low tannins. Conversely, if you drink nothing but sweet white wine and you never drink red wines have tannins in much larger quantities that are actually physical, and we can perceive them much more than white wine. So if you drink like nothing but German Riesling and then you have a glass of any red, you're going to be like, whoa, what's going on? So that's why there is a subjective element to tannins as well. So hope that helps. Let me know, Kate, if you still have questions, or anybody else. So Malbec on the tannin scale, medium to medium high. Our structure tonight for the class, how we're going to go through the wines, because they are all the same grape, alcohol levels are relatively the same. We are going to go from the least tannic wine to the most tannic wine. Tannins are a bit of a palate killer. They kind of wreck your ability to taste things. So anytime you're doing wine night, don't start with the biggest, boldest red and then move to your light-bodied rosé. Always start with the lighter things and move to the heartier tannin things so that you can actually taste the various wines that you're tasting. Other things, I have some food pairing ideas that I'll kind of throw out as we talk about each of the specific wines. I had really lovely maps, guys. I had such great maps for you. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Malbec story, because I can't just show it to you on a map. And I'll pick up the story later when we get to the second wine. So the Malbec story goes that Malbec is thought to have originated in France, as many, many, many of the grapes that we drink have. And it was primarily used as a blending grape. There were wineries in France where younger generations moved over to, which Mendoza are you starting with? You're going to start with the Acaso or the Bousquet, depending on which one you ended up getting from us, but the Not Catena. The Not Catena is what you're going to start with. So either you have a bottle that looks like this guy, and you can start with that, or you have the Domaine Bousquet, and you can start with that if you want to pour yourself a little bit. So wineries in France sent younger generations over to South America to learn about wine, to help have the younger generations kind of explore wine without ruining the family's land. And it was there that some Malbec was planted, thought to be a good blending grape for Cabernet Sauvignon, which is how the French do it. And it was almost gonna go fall to obscurity in Argentina, and then there was just like a teeny tiny little areas that were growing it in France. And lo and behold, in the 1980s, a gentleman named Paul Hobbs, at least he claims, I don't know that he is, but he claims that he is the person who saw some Malbec growing in some vineyards and said, like, hey, he wasn't the head winemaker at the time, hey, can I play around with this and experiment with this grape and see how it does here? So Paul says that he's the one, whether he is or not, he's definitely responsible for the boom that then followed. So if you don't know the more recent history of Malbec, Malbec has skyrocketed in popularity this century. So in the 1990s, there was a little bit of Malbec. I got into the wine profession in the early 2000s, and that was really when it kind of started, and it has taken off, and it continues to, outshine anything that I don't know if there are wine forecasters, I'm sure there are, could have imagined. So it is incredibly popular. The winemakers in Argentina are constantly trying to figure out what their next Malbec is, like what's the next thing? And winemakers around the world are trying to say like, well, this random obscure grape that we grow that no one else grows, is the next Malbec. Come on, like come and join our train. Their friends in Chile try to do it, and to not nearly as much acclaim as Argentinian Malbec. It just really seems to hit on a lot of the things that American wine drinkers really like. Malbec is popular around the world, but we as Americans, we are really kind of responsible for the huge boom and the continued popularity. So that's a little bit of the history. Again, we'll go into a little bit more specifics as we get into the other wines, but we're going to start with the Mendoza. So again, either your Ocaso or your Domaine Bousquet, or if you're joining us from somewhere else, I recommended that folks find a less expensive Malbec from Mendoza. So Mendoza is a very, very large wine region in Argentina. There are a couple pockets of, yay America, woo woo. Hey, America is responsible for Malbec, so, it's all good. Mendoza, so there are a couple pockets of wine regions outside of Mendoza in Argentina, but for the majority of the wine growing land in Argentina, it falls into the bucket of Mendoza. It's this very long strip of land that kind of runs north to south, with various valleys, various tributaries, and so when a wine says Mendoza on it, it's kind of like a wine saying California. It means that the grapes come from anywhere along this gigantic swath of land. So I specifically wanted you guys to find something, whether it was from us or from someone else, that was kind of the lower end price range. And I have picked a couple, I've tried to find the perfect mix of Malbecs because they are so popular. And I really do like the two that you guys would have gotten from us. I have found again and again that people really respond very well to them, that they hit on the notes that people want, particularly when they're asking for just like, I just want a bottle of Malbec. I don't really care about price. It's not for like some fancy dinner. I just want Malbec because I like to drink it. Both of the Ocaso and the Bousquet hit on kind of the flavor profile of Mendoza at large. And what those tend to be are on the full-bodied side, low to medium acidity. The acidity is really pretty negligible in most of these wines. Tannins are kind of in that medium range. They're not aggressive on the tannin. The flavor profile of this kind of general Mendoza, Argentina Malbecs is fruity. The wine words that I like to suggest to folks, if you like this style, are things like rich, lush, velvety, like, right? I mean, all these like textured words, right? Like all these things that sound so lovely. Don't you want that? That sounds so nice. P.S. for those of you who are here in Madison, I'm really glad that it's like slightly cooled off, because last night when I was thinking about drinking, big, rich, lush, velvety red wines, that's not my jam in this kind of weather. So at least it's a little cooler. I have some fresh air coming in the window. It's a little cooler. So with these wines, they don't have as much acidity as some other like kind of food pairing darlings, I guess is how I would refer to them. So food that these wines do go well with, things that are spicy. Spice and tannins Depends on who you are, but spice and tannins don't necessarily mix super well because tannins make spicy things taste spicier. So for the average person, that is often like too much spice. So these wines are awesome with chili, with a spicy black bean soup, with red curry. You don't necessarily have to stick to, you know, what feels, I don't know, more regionally appropriate kind of food. I just mean spice generally, like barbecue ribs, those kinds of things. It pairs really nicely because of the fruit. Start drinking if you haven't already. Start drinking. I'm glad you like the label. Kristen is saying that she likes the label and the description of the god is Ocaso. This is about as close to a picture of a naked lady as I would get at table wine. You know, somebody brings me a bottle of wine with a naked lady on it, I usually look the other way, but that I think is pretty okay. I haven't had this wine in a little while, and I think it's tasting just absolutely fantastic tonight. I don't know what y'all are thinking. Tell me, what are you thinking? As you tell me. One of the fascinating parts of the Malbec story is that if you know anything about Argentina, I think the things you probably know are that they eat a lot of red meat and that they have very high mountains there, right? I think that those are two pieces of general knowledge. This is incredibly mountainous terrain. It's hard to get wine to grow at these altitudes. There are a lot of grapes that winemakers have tried to make work with, work in the area that haven't caught on, or, you know, when they grow them in Argentina, they take on flavor profiles that are just super different than anywhere else. And that's because of the elevation. The Ocaso and the Busquet are from very similar altitudes. So this is from 3,000 feet above sea level. This is a bit of like a story in altitude, which is very high for the wine world. And within Argentina, it's not that high. So when a wine says Mendoza on it generally and isn't more specific about the place that it's coming from, most often it's going to be a mixture of kind of some of the higher altitude stuff and some of the lower altitude in the valleys. So the valleys in Mendoza are pretty warm, right? It's a pretty sunny country, which is how the wine is so ripe, right? Yummy fruit, sweet tobacco. It would pair well with food, Alexis. I agree with you. Like this, the Ocaso does have a little bit of that kind of tingly acidity. It's not like just totally flat, right? Yeah, and Victor the Busquet, right? The tannins don't conflict with the fruit, absolutely, right? And it's super smooth, and I think that that is exactly what why this wine is so popular, why restaurants, you know, choose to put it on glass lists all the time, because it just delivers on that without being sweet, right? It doesn't go into that land of, it takes a certain kind of person to like that particular Zinfandel. You know what I mean? Like it's not Australian Shiraz. Not that I don't, you know, love those things in their own hedonistic ways, but the Malbec just toes that line and doesn't kind of cross over. Blackberries, totally on board. Yep, absolutely, right? Like all of these berries, the tobacco things, those are all yes to all of that stuff. So with the altitude thing, in the valleys, it's really quite warm, and that's how you're getting kind of all of these ripe flavors. And it's how the wines are relatively inexpensive. As we get higher in altitude, as you might imagine, it's much harder to grow the grapes further up, steeper mountains, and all that good news. And all of that comes with, you know, a higher price tag. So that's kind of the story of the mixture. If any of you have taken Central Coast of California class with me, or maybe we've just talked about Central Coast of California. It's also a very large appellation, AVA, where wines are going to come from kind of different areas to keep the price down. And that's exactly what's happening here. So when a Caso tells me that their winery is at 3,000 feet, like that's all I can tell you is that that's where the winery is. I don't know for sure where the grapes were grown. I don't know the altitude of it. I would not guess that they're higher, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you know, it's kind of generally speaking, that's about kind of where they are. Is anybody having food tonight with the wine so far? I know some folks asked for cheese and sausage, which I adored. I'm just curious if people are eating right now and if it's tasting particularly good or not good with whatever you happen to be having. Yeah, taco salad I wouldn't necessarily think would be the coolest pairing, but that's all right. Taco salad sounds delicious. Yeah, cheese and crackers, right? And I think that, again, that's what makes this such a versatile wine. Ooh, sweet potato empanadas. Yum. I Googled one with Malbec and decided to have a burger. I feel like it's not a super great pairing. I think, Nikki, don't give up hope yet. And let's see how the other wines maybe hold up. So that is advice that people give, Malbec and burgers. And I don't think that it's bad. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're the one actually, maybe you're actually eating that burger and you're like, no, it's really not good. To me, the idea of Malbec and a burger isn't bad. It's just not great. And that's when I was saying at the kind of the beginning that it doesn't have like, it's not super high in tannin, nor is it super high in acidity. That's kind of like the good and the bad, you know, two sides of the same coin. It's not going to get in the way of much because it's not going to be like fighting, but it's also not going to be this like wow moment either. It's going to be kind of somewhere in the in-between. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. I'm seeing what everybody's having. Okay. Roasted pork shoulder in the oven, waiting to see what it'll go with. I think that's great. Yeah. Get some cheese out. Get some cheese. I'm gonna have some cheese right now. Chicken pot pie, yummy. Braised short from Lombardino's. Now that sounds really good with this. And Car Valley cheddar. Sounds great. That sounds fantastic. If you're having steak and you're liking it, keep rocking on with what you're drinking, or perhaps see if one of the other wines works better. The food pairing adage is what grows together goes together, right? The idea that like all Italian wines go well with tomatoes and peppers, right? That kind of idea. And so I do think that like the thought to pair Malbec with beef makes sense, right? There's a ton of beef in Argentina and there's a ton of Malbec in Argentina. This is what I have not visited, but pardon me, my understanding is like this kind of like level of Malbec when they kind of break for the work day in the vineyards for their nice long lunch, that they'll have, you know, they'll grill some steak and drink that kind of like level of Malbec all the time. So I think that it makes sense. From a personal standpoint, it's not my like fave pairing. I'm liking what you guys are eating. That all sounds really good to me. Any other questions about this kind of like level? This is the level that you can expect to find if you are just ordering Malbec from a glass list sometime in the future, or if you're just like picking out a bottle and you're not too specific, it's going to most likely be something along these lines. So take that for what you will. I do think of these as cozy up with a book kind of wine, like wine that, you know, you don't need food with it. You can just, you know, binge watch something on Netflix. Is anybody watching anything good right now? We're like that point in the lockdown. But I'm like, hey guys, let's do that. All right, if there aren't other questions, we can kind of keep moving along our Malbec story. For those of the Malbec fans out there, I do think this is what people have in mind kind of when they're saying that, like, I love Malbec. It's easy going. It's, you know, a nice party red, that kind of thing. I think that that's what they have in mind. The next two wines that we're going to taste, I would put in the slightly more serious category, I guess. That doesn't mean that you couldn't take them to a party if and when that time comes. It just means that they're slightly different in flavor profile. So when I sent out the email with the wines on it, I mentioned that I was hoping that you might be able to find a wine from Valle de Uco, which is within Mendoza. If you shopped with us, you almost everybody got this wine from Catena, from La Consulta Vineyard. I think there are maybe a couple folks who got a different wine from Ernesto Catena, which is the animal Malbec. So move on to your second Argentina if you haven't already. So why I specifically wanted Valle de Uco is it's one of the subregions within Mendoza. And I think that if you are somebody who says, I love Malbec, it's my favorite grape, God, there's nothing I don't like about it. I think, like, man, dig in and learn about it and see, first of all, is that actually true? But what is it that you like about it? And where in the world can you find the Malbec that you like the most? And if you find out at the end that, like, this is my favorite, then rock on and save yourself some money. And if you find out that, like, oh, this is really interesting to me to explore these subregions of Mendoza and I want to learn about them and see what else is out there, I think that can be a super eye-opening experience for people. So here we go. Valle de Uco. Higher altitude than just the kind of general Mendoza, right? Because Mendoza is kind of a mix of things, so they can't say necessarily overall like what the altitude is of Mendoza as specifically as Valle de Uco. Why do I keep talking about elevation? I've kind of mentioned it, but like, why? The thing that differentiates Argentina from everywhere else in the world is the Andes, and it has become something that they are hanging their hats on. And somewhat like our friends in France and Italy, where they say, like, our grapes are so different than the grapes that are grown across the street from us. In Argentina, they're like, well, guess how high my vineyards are. And they are really taking pride in how high the vineyards are. The reason being that when Malbec grows at lower altitudes, it doesn't tend to get ripe in the best possible way. So it tends to be super tannic if it's in lower altitude and a cooler place, or if it's low altitude and a warm place, it gets super ripe and very boring. So what the Argentinians have realized is they have the warmth, but as you go higher up, they have these very cool nights, as you might imagine, right? We're talking about, like, you know, thousands and thousands of feet up in the air. So the wines don't have that, like, super grippy tannins that make them undrinkable either. And so they are this, like, very beautiful kind of complex grape that you can't get anywhere else in the world. Because we are limited to 3 wines, I kept it to Argentina and France because they are by far the most important from a learning perspective. If you wanted to throw another one into the mix, you could seek out a California Malbec. We don't actually have any in stock right now, but I'm happy to look into that for y'all if you are interested, where you would see the that kind of lower altitude and much riper, right? Like really juicy fruit. So Valle de Uco has that more intense altitudes. So we're talking for the La Consulta, the vineyards are at, I believe it's 3,500 to 3,600 feet above sea level. So at every 100 feet we get above the regular Mendoza is just like another notch in the belt. When I talked about them kind of hanging their hats on it, if you have the wines at home, you can see this, or let me get it there. High mountain vines. I've seen wines that say like highest altitude, right? Like they're like so proud of this fact. They need to talk about it. So the calling cards of Valle de Uco, which Mackenzie has already started to pick up on, is the not so, it's not a fruity smell, right? It's a savory smell. It's minerals, it's rocks, it's almost inky. Like I definitely smell like ink. Which I realize some of you might not have ever had a pen explode on you on an airplane, but that's what I'm talking about, that kind of stuff. A bit of smoke, yeah, right? Yes, absolutely, I agree with those things. Chocolatey aroma, chocolatey taste, I'm curious. I'm not smelling chocolate, that doesn't mean it's not there, I'm just asking. Oh, you said, yeah, on the nose, sorry. So all of those things, all of those flavors and aromas are really pretty typical of Valle de Uco. You're going to get, as you're starting to see, a little bit more tannin to it. It has a little bit more structure than the Acaso. The Acaso was kind of this like easygoing wine. This has a little bit more kind of down the center of the wine. If you're drinking the Catena, the Ernesto Catena, the Animal, still very similar. It's still Valle de Uco. I would say on the nose, you're probably going to get a little bit more chocolate than you're getting with the La Consulta. Catena, not Ernesto, Catena goes for this very minerally style. The other, the kind of the reason that people seek out Valle de Uco wines, they're a little bit more elegant, which I realize is kind of a marketing word. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what is that? It's kind of the idea, when I was talking about the structure, that the wine has some complexity to it. It's not as bold. It's a little more reserved, and that's like the way that we in the wine profession talk about that style, is to call them elegant. Because saying something's not bold makes it sound like it's boring, but what we mean is just like it's different, right? It's just a different style of wine. I am consulting my notes. Sorry, guys. This is like dual world. The other thing about wines from this particular area is that they are good for aging. So if you're interested in seeing how a wine kind of progresses over time, while it is a step up in price from the Acaso, the La Consulta is only $20. So it's not, a massive expenditure for most of us. So you could buy some of these and kind of see how they change over time. The one that we're drinking is 2016. So it already has a little bit of age on it. So I know there are two Patties watching tonight, and they're both Patty G's, which I think is awesome. So I can't just say Patty G. Male Patty or Irish Patty. So the first wine is on the glass list and the second is on the bottle list. And I think that is exactly what they're for, right? Like that's, I could not think of a better way to describe the difference between those wines, right? That like one is everybody's gonna like it, pour it out to the people, and one is like for the folks who are like, I'm ordering the steak dinner, right? And I want something a little bit more serious. This is definitely a wine that you will notice change over the course of your drinking. So whether you decide to drink this whole bottle tonight, or you decide that you want to try to keep it good for another day or two, you will notice different flavors and aromas. You'll notice that kind of like upfront structure start to soften a little bit over time. It really is an interesting and complex wine. Same is true with the Ernesto Catena. So slightly different flavor profile on that, but it is another one where it's like a little bit more serious. Yay, the two Patties are connecting. Yeah. Alexis saying that you feel like you avoid things with the 91 points. Oh my God, this is why I love you guys so much. Okay, so Alexis is asking the sticker, right, on the label that says 91 points. Sorry about the reflection. It says Robert Parker on there. And she's saying, should I avoid those wines? Well, here's what I can tell you. I avoid as many of them as possible on your behalf. So if you shop with us, I go out of my way to not carry those wines, really honestly, because I hate the marketing of it. I think it's just too much. Who puts the stickers on? The winery or the importer can choose to do that. You know, they're proud of that fact. And if you don't shop with us, that's totally cool. And I understand that if you are shopping in a place like a massive grocery store or a Total Wine kind of place, and you're looking at the shelves and you're like, I don't know, there are, I mean, let's say there are 50 Malbecs and they're all from Argentina. And Molly talked to me about Valle de Uco, but I don't, maybe I remember that, maybe I don't. I just want a good Malbec. What am I supposed to do? And you see that, and maybe you think like, okay, well, that's something. That at least gives me something to go on. That's why I don't totally hate on it, because I understand why it's there. It is there to help people, give people some guidance. So Alexis, you don't have to steer clear of them if you see them with me, but don't automatically assume that all wines that have 90+ points on them are good, because, you know, any of you could come up with your scale and say like, it's, you know, the Patties, the two Patties give it 95 out of 100, and like, okay, that's great. I wanted to share with you a little bit more on the Malbec history. When I was talking about that gentleman, Paul Hobbs, who, you know, said to his bosses, hey guys, can I go play around with the, Malbec that's growing over there and see what happens? This is what he was working for. So there's another winery called Norton that you might have seen. Norton is the first winery in Argentina to export Malbec to the United States, but it is Catena who is responsible for the Malbec boom. The story of Catena is interesting. I don't tend to like, you know, go too far deep into like the specific winery stories, but I do think that this is a very clear case of one winery having done a ton of the heavy lifting and having paved the way for a lot of folks to come after them. So if you find yourselves able to ever travel to Argentina, I do recommend at least checking out Catena. It's, you know, it's the Chateau Montelena, if you know Napa wines. It's the equivalent of that. It's a very large winery. They make a lot of wine, and the truth of the matter is they still make really good wine. They are famous because of how good they are. There are other things I could say, but I think that that's like the most important part of the story. The company is currently run by Laura Catena, who I had the privilege of meeting many, many years ago when I was super young. I think it might have been like my first ever wine lunch. If any of you lived here and remember Magnus, the restaurant, I had lunch at Magnus and got to sit next to Laura Catena, and she talked me through this elevation story. And she showed me the different soils of the different vineyards that her family has at these different heights, and said to me like, and it was the first time that I ever got to taste one grape made by the same people with just different elevations. That's it. That's really the only big difference, right? The oak aging was really pretty similar on all of these wines. And it was just this huge light bulb moment for me. So I can't teach Malbec and not talk about Catena, because they deserve the place they are. for those of you who have the Ernesto Catena, you're like, is this the same people? Because this label is, you know, pretty traditional looking. And the Ernesto Catena label, I wish I had it here, is green and it's got these animals on it and the wine is called Animal. Ernesto is Laura's brother. Ernesto is not part of the Catena family wines. He is the hippie child who traveled all over the world, learned about wine and other things. He apparently is a bit of a fun cowboy type. His winery is very close to his family's. The vineyards for the Animal wine that I sent home with everybody are basically across the street from La Consulta, which is why I sent you home with it. It is definitely a good substitute because it is very, very close geographically. If you are interested in tasting it, I really do think, like, you know, let us know that you'd like to taste Ernesto's wine. They're really different styles from very similar places. And I think that you can kind of see the Animal is organic, the Catena is not officially. So I don't know, I just think it's worth talking about. I think Catena deserves the place in history that they have. Before we leave Argentina, questions or thoughts from anybody before I take us to France? Okay, so we're going to end in France. If you know me and you take classes with me, like, yeah, I work France into pretty much everything because it deserves the place of importance that it has. So when we're talking about Malbec in France, it can come from a few different regions. Most notably, Cahors. I think everybody who shopped with us got this wine. So everybody should have the Chateau de Caillot. Cahors, that is how you say that word. Cahors is the region where they grow Malbec and make reds that are 100% Malbec or might have a little bit of other grapes blended in, but it's the Malbec area. The most prominent region in France that grows Malbec is Bordeaux. That is, if you remember, I said at the beginning, in France, they blend it with Cabernet Sauvignon, and that is where that happens. It's blended with Merlot and Cab. It's one of the 5 allowed grapes in Bordeaux. So it is there. It's never, gosh, no, I don't think I can think of an example of it being the primary grape in a Bordeaux. So it will be a blending grape, but not the primary grape. So in Cahors, our elevation has gone down drastically. We're at about 700 feet above sea level. So we're, you know, from the La Consulta, we're almost 3,000. We've almost gone down 3,000 feet. And as you remember me saying that it's either low elevation and cool and so more tannic, or it's low elevation and really warm and so super ripe. Well, we're over here in super tannic land. That's the Cahors story. That Malbecs from Cahors definitely are more aggressive in tannins. If you don't drink a lot of French wine, if you're taking this class and you've only ever had Malbec from Argentina, get ready for a different experience because it's very different. I think one smell can tell you that. It's more like a Valle de Uco, right? It's less fruit and more savory things, more herbs, more minerals, more of that kind of flavor profile. With that, Cahors is kind of in the southwest region. It is really close to Bordeaux. It just kind of crosses over and falls into the southwest as far as like the bigger region that it's part of. This is the land of kind of more rustic country fare. So cassoulet is really big there. Charcuterie is really big there. That kind of more game kind of meats are bigger there. And that's really where I see this kind of shining. If you are a family that has access to venison, this is like super great with venison. It has a little bit more of that. Wild gaminess to it, but definitely more tannins. Tell me what you think. I'm curious. I'm always super curious to see what people think when they taste French Malbec, having never had one before. very, very dry, right? Those are those tannins, Kate. You asked about tannins before. Here you are. Here's the teaching. These are the tannins. This is this area. Wine words that you can kind of be on the lookout for would be, you know, rustic is definitely a wine word that I might even use to describe a wine like this. Earthy, structured. I will say that if you come and say, I would like a bottle of Malbec, I might ask you, do you have any preference on where it comes from? Or I might say, like, from Argentina, and that's probably how I would phrase the question, because I know that the majority of folks, when they talk about Malbec, they want the Acaso or something in that vein. But we always carry at least 1 or 2 French Malbecs, because I think it can be super cool if you say, no, I don't have any preference, or is there somewhere else that they come from that you can taste this and, you know, have that experience? Or you're like, I don't like Malbec. I like Bordeaux. I like Cabernet Sauvignon. I like Tempranillo. I want something with more structure. And then you can kind of come to the French one from that direction. Oh, that's so great to hear. That's very different, and it's why you love a single varietal class, and thank you to the ditto there. Thank you. That's why I love the single varietal class. It gives you fall vibes. Totally, right? I think, absolutely. I think that this wine is so good in the fall. I think when I taught this, it was August, late August of last year. So I was able to say, like, hey guys, when it cools off soon, you'll want this, right? Right now, you'll be like, yeah, I'll remember that. I'll remember that for like 5 months from now. It's not how you think of Malbec. I think that what's happening in Cahors is a really cool thing, because I don't mean that from temperature. They've seen the success of Malbec in Argentina, and there were wineries that kind of in the early 2000s were very dismissive of it. They were like, you know, as you might imagine, some more traditional French folks, like, how dare they take our grape? And, you know, it's kind of like, your grape? Gosh, nobody has ever even heard of Cahors outside of, you know, southwestern France. It's not like an area that people have wines from. You know, if I had owned table wine back then, I probably wouldn't have necessarily had a Cahors on my shelf. There are wineries that have seen the success of what's happening in Argentina, and they're not trying to mimic it, right? Obviously, these are super different wines. They are not going for the same thing, but they have seen what Malbec can taste like in different places, and they've seen the fruit, and so they've kind of adjusted some of the winemaking to at least be, there's some fruit here. I can promise you, having drunk some Cahors in my early 20s that didn't taste like anything other than tannins, you're happy. Okay, so now I'm curious. Okay, wet leaves, forest floor, absolutely, right? Yeah, all of that earthy stuff. Sandy, Elsie, do you mean sandy tasting or like faint feeling? The sandy feel. Absolutely, it's the tannins. I think sandy is a totally fine word. Chalky would be the other word that I might throw out, right? So we, let me see. I want to think if I have anything else I want to say about Cahors before we leave it. No, I don't think so. Tasting, smelling. Oh, it tastes and smells like sand. Interesting. I mean, maybe that's that earthy thing. I think that is probably the earth. Rocks. I mean, sand is crushed rocks. So it smells like rocks to me. It smells like sand to you. It's just a finer, the finer thing of the same thing, right? Yeah. Okay, so I want to go back up and kind of answer the questions that have kind of been filing through as we wrap up. Question about a wine smelling like compost. I'm glad you don't think this wine smells like compost. I would say that I've not usually heard compost. I hear barnyard. I wouldn't put this in the barnyard category, but it is definitely a tasting note. It is something that people can smell. or taste. Compost, I think I've come across it a couple of times. I just think like if I were, I'm the person who's trying to sell wine. And if I wanted to sell you a bottle of wine, in no world am I going to call something compost. I'm going to say wet leaves, right? I'm going to say a fall afternoon, right? Those are nicer ways to kind of say more or less the same thing, right? So you might come across that. White Malbec, Linda, they are trying to get on, they're trying to get on the train of both the popularity of Malbec and the, I don't know, random still hanging on love of white Zin and the trend of rosé. So they're trying to make pink wine from Malbec and calling it white Malbec. It could be white or it could be pink. I don't know off the top of my head which it was, because I don't know that specific wine, but that's what's going on there. I'm really glad that the two Patties are having it out here. This is great. This is amazing. And for those of you who don't join us in class a lot, Irish Patty often joins us. And Patty Greeley, I don't know, have you joined us for an in-person class? I'm not sure that you have, but Patty, female Patty, shops at the store a lot and is a fantastic supporter of table wine in her own right. So she is also real, but it is kind of amazing that there are two PADDYs here in Madison. And the tasting notes of compost, prunes, and gym shoes. Yeah, those are not those are not things that I kind of go after to talk about. We are right on time. I'm wondering if anybody has any lingering questions or thoughts. Was there a fave tonight? I guess I'm curious to hear what people really enjoyed. That's awesome, Ben. I'm really glad that 2 is your favorite. Katana, look at that. See, it is. See, every time I went, I'm like, should I include, because it's kind of a little bit more of like a bigger name, right? And that's not necessarily the kinds of wines I tend to feature, but then I do, and this is, everybody loves them. So I'm glad. 231, but you love them for different reasons. I'm really glad. Oh, cool, Heidi. So you guys like some tannins in your family. So that's kind of fun to know. 2, but I'd be happy with 1 if I didn't have 2 to compare it with. That's great. Like, that's exactly it, right? Like, again, someday you will go to a restaurant and they'll pour you a glass of Malbec like this and you'll be totally fine and you will never even look at that bottle list because you won't even think about it, right? You'll just have a glass of this and that'll be great. And I'm glad to hear that somebody picked a Caso as their favorite. That's great. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm really glad. It is 1 grape, 3 super different flavors. And for those of you who joined us last week for Sauv Blanc, we had to travel very far distances to get those very different flavors. Here, we only went to 2 places. We were in Argentina for 2 of the 3. And the reason that you can see just the significant difference between altitude, between kind of the more general appellation to the more specific appellation. It is a time where I do think that you can taste a difference in price. I really do think you can. And you all know that that is not something I tend to say, but I do think that you can see it there. I'm glad that you love the cohort. It's so fun. And we carry a Malbec that some of you may have had before called Marcel. It is also a French Malbec if you want to explore more French Malbec. It's from the Southwest region. It's a little bit larger than Cahors. It's kind of a bridge between Argentina and France. It's not quite as rustic as the Cayo that you had, nor is it as fruity as the Acaso. It's kind of like, I really think of that as a super crowd pleaser. It also has kind of like a fun old tiny label. Well, thank you guys so very much. If you have to go, I totally understand. Feel free to scoot off. If you have any other questions, shout them on out. And if there is another, I'm hearing from at least some of you that the single varietal classes are really kind of I don't know, really enjoyable for some of you. If there are other grapes that you want me to tackle, with this format where we're only doing 3 wines, I can tackle grapes that I might not otherwise do. Because sometimes I don't do a specific grape because there aren't 6 different versions, but maybe there's a grape that I could do 3 different versions of. Sparkling or dessert wine. Ooh, yeah, I love. Will I do more virtual tastings? Maybe rosé? Yeah. Oh, Riesling is July for your birthday, Kristen. Well, you know that you do not have to ask twice to get me to teach a class about Riesling. So yes. And to Lisa's question about the virtual tastings, yeah. So we don't have the, we don't even have the green light to have in-person tastings, even if we wanted to. And we are definitely erring on the side of caution. In terms of all things table wine right now. So we will definitely continue with the virtual tastings. It's summer in Madison. I know that we're all super desperate to get outside and not be inside. So I don't know that I will continue with 1 a week, but you know, I'll try my best. Rosés will definitely be on the list. Alexis, I love you. Yeah, maybe Cab Franc. Maybe Cab Franc for the summer. I don't want to just do all reds. Ensenada, Mexico, that'd be super fascinating, Kathleen, if any of those wines were available. I haven't come across, the only Mexican wines that we have access to right now are from Baja, and it's like 1 winery. We do have one in the store, in case y'all are wondering. We have Nebbiolo from Baja, which is super delicious. Yeah, I would love to do Ensenada, but I don't have the ability to get those wines. Bye to Patty number 1. And I'm glad to see that you guys love the virtual tasting so much. I really appreciate the support. It's been awesome. So yeah, I will announce June classes coming up soon. You still think orange wine is a good idea, and I still hear you. I really want to do it as an in-person tasting. It was going to be the April tasting. It was going to be the April tasting. Was going to be orange wine, and so I kind of can't give up my dream of having all the people in the store and tasting orange wines. So, Washington State. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for understanding. Awesome. I'm gonna go eat some food from Mint Mark now. I'm very excited about that fact. So, Finger Lakes. I could do Finger Lakes. I love it, guys. If you have more ideas after this class ends, feel free to email me or call the store. Just tell me the next time, you know, place an order or something like that. And if you haven't already signed up for Greece, it is next Saturday. It's going to be a blast. There are few things in the world that I personally love as much as Greek wine, so I will promise there will be lots of jazz hands, and hopefully by then my computer will be working and I will have some visual aids for you. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.